6:00 PM. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the planning board meeting for Wednesday, April 17th. Would you all mind standing and join us in pledge allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Tonight we have a new member from our last election, Mr. Timothy Rhines. He's a new member on the board. Just was elected this last term. Myself, I'm very happy to have Tim with us. I know how he can run a meeting, does his research, and I think he'll be an asset to the board, so welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So anyway, the first order of business to be reorganize the board. With the clerk of the board,
I would like to declare that all offices of the board are currently vacant. And I would like to nominate Tom Pires as the chairman of the board.
I'll second that nomination.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
any other nominations?
That would be
Anybody?
now.
Okay.
Do you accept the nomination?
Absolutely. no
I do,
discussion.
I will accept it. Well, my plate is overflowing, but that's okay. I will accept, so. And with that,
I'd like to nominate Timothy Rhines to be the vice chairman.
I will second that.
we gotta vote on me first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. All in favor of that?
Aye.
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 Yeah, opposed? Okay, I guess I'm the chairman. No point in moving around, we'll just go as normal.
Go with the flow.
Okay, is there any nominations for vice chairman?
I'll nominate Timothy Rhines.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's made, and the nomination for Timothy Rhines has been made and seconded.
I do accept the nomination.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, welcome.
Nominate Robert Bonia.
Wait a minute, sorry, we need a motion to, you nominated, but now we need a motion, right?
I seconded.
You did second?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
We
sorry.
all lied.
We all ayed.
Thank you, okay.
And I made a motion to nominate Robert Bonia as the clerk of the board. I'll second that.
Okay, the motion is been made and seconded. Nomination of Robert Boner as clerk of the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I think we're in place, ready to go.
Yeah, I think we should, while we're here and doing this, we should also list the other committees that we're on. So I would like to nominate Timothy Rhines for the Cannabis Advisory Board. I need a second.
I'll second that.
I accept. All in favor?
Okay.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
I nominate Joseph Figurito to the Industrial Development Committee. I'll second that.
Okay, the motion is made and seconded for Joseph Figurito to the Industrial Development Committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nominate
Okay.
CPC.
I'd like to nominate Robert Woods to be the representative for the planning board to the Community Preservation Committee.
I'll second.
Accept.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to nominate Robert Woods to the Community Preservation Committee.
And we have one more committee, which would be our Serpent representative, which I would be willing to serve unless someone else would like to.
Do well at.
So I'll make a motion,
Let's,
Mr. Chairman,
let's vote on that one first.
to,
Okay, so all those in favor of Robert Woods being
Serpent.
representative to CBC?
No, Serpent.
Serpent,
We didn't vote CPC yet.
Yeah, we did.
yeah.
We did?
Yeah,
We
that's
did,
all.
On
we
that.
did.
Okay, oh, you called it?
Yeah. No, he nominated me. I accept.
Okay,
He nominated, yes.
all right.
So we need a motion to appoint Robert Woods
Serpent.
to Serpent.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
And I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to appoint Robert Woods as Serpent representative for the planning board. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed?
And to the best of my knowledge, I think that's all the positions that need to be.
Congratulations.
We do have one more item of business to organize that board, and that is to designate the payment designees to pay for bills and payroll.
right, which I'm willing
It
to
should be
do.
at least,
Because I'm around a lot, and that's all, I'm just gonna speak
yeah,
for
those
myself.
available people,
Right.
three of us would, or I would like to see all five of us, but.
I'll participate.
But we need to designate 1, 2, 3. If you wanna do all 5,
Yeah, it would be
Just say-
myself and the vice chairman, and then, probably Woody.
I'm always here, so it would just be easy.
Just nominate, just have the four of them,
The
because
three.
I can never get here, so.
okay, so I'm gonna
Very
do
rare.
Tom first. Tim Rhines,
Yep, Woody. and
then
Joe.
Woody, then Joe, and then,
Yeah.
So we're
okay.
not gonna require
Yeah,
two
I think it
signatures.
should be all five of
We're
us.
not gonna require two signatures.
No, one
No,
signature.
all 5 is
sufficient.
fine, I wanted to make sure you didn't want all 5 to sign, because
No,
then that's
no,
really gonna,
that's
okay.
good.
I just wanted to
We
know
could
the
be all
designation.
signatories,
So
but,
there'll be no special notations then with that, because it'll be Tom will be the lead, and then I'll be second, so we're not having two people sign.
Correct.
with it,
Right,
so-
Correct.
if Tom
That's what
can't,
I
then
heard.
you're up, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
you ready to go? Let me know when you catch up.
Turn that off. Thought I did.
I forgot mine too.
Ready, you have yours on too?
No, mine was off because of you, when you said it. I'm turning mine off.
It was down already, I wasn't sure. Okay. Agenda item number 4, confirm next meeting date of May 1st. If May 1st is the first Wednesday of the month, then that'll be our regular meeting date, 6 PM.
Good on you, let's make it political. Any absentees for that day? Anybody can't make it that day?
On May 1st?
Yeah, I'm just suggesting.
Well, that could be, anybody, everybody all set with that date?
As far as
As
I
far
know,
as I
yeah.
know, everyone's on schedule.
Yeah, our regular meeting schedule is the first and third Wednesday, so.
I didn't think that was an optional thing.
No, well, if there's 3 people gonna be, as we go into the summertime, if there's 3 people that could be on vacation at the same time, then I think it would be worthwhile to change the date of the meeting, but, all right. Moving on to number 5, I forgot to mention in the beginning, this is a public meeting, being video and audio recorded for cable broadcast, and will also be on YouTube. Okay, next order, number 5, business, review, discuss, and act, Form A application for Gardner, Mr. Gardner, 2325 Chestnut Street, map 1, lots 48 and 123. Mr. Gardner, you here this evening? A representative of Mr. Gardner here?
Doesn't look like he's here yet, so if you wanna table that for a minute.
I think,
You notice that everybody's sitting way back there, we must stay.
Quite a few. Just that third back to the trail, it's like a Center Street.
I'm gonna take the order of the business, I think, because it's pretty straightforward. From what I'm saying here, the plan is for a transfer of property from one lot to another lot. It looks like parcel B has 1,000 square feet, and parcel A has 1,000 square feet that they are transferring from each other. I just don't know who's going to who.
No, what he's doing
Yeah.
is doing some land swap, so what he's doing is he's squaring this part off. Excuse me.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Thank you.
create parcel.
Let me see anything
Lot
there.
48.
Like it's going
Okay,
across
all right.
the-
I get it.
Program.
Yeah.
They're showing the concept of map on parcel B from lot 120.
There we go.
Parcel A, formerly formerly lot
48.
Combined with lot 1.
Those are the owners.
So parcel A, combined with that.
Right.
Lot 120.
Parcel A from lot 48.
What's this here?
Parcel B, formerly lot 123, is going to
Okay.
lot 48.
B is going to A, from the way I read it.
48,000 square feet from here.
Yeah, that little square on the edge of parcel B is going up to the rear, left of parcel A.
I get it now.
Okay?
It's like on transfer of ownership right from the father to
Hmm.
West River.
Yeah, so it's an even swath of land, one
It's
parcel.
frontage.
Yeah, plenty of frontage on
Plenty of
both,
frontage on both.
square footage. That's going over
We
there.
got a public hearing, we're supposed to start at 6:30.
What is it?
Don't ask me why.
No, one at 6:30.
I don't know.
So if we have to, we can pause 6:15, open 6:30, and then pause 6:30 to finish 6:15.
Yep.
I don't think the numbers are right.
Explain it. Unless it's legal. Then you tell me that mine. So, it's got 15 feet here.
What is the purpose for that?
I have no idea what the purpose is. That's why I wish I was
Parcel
here.
A, formerly.
Find out, because it really doesn't make sense to me, but.
I'm taking this piece, and then taking that
And then
piece.
taking that piece there.
Members,
Does the board wish to wait for the owner of the property?
owners.
And we
Yeah,
got
Mr. Chairman, can we wait for the,
Yeah, I'll make a motion to table until the applicant comes in.
Well, we got a 6:15 public hearing, so.
Yeah.
I'll second that motion.
I don't think it was clear enough.
All in favor? All
Aye.
in favor?
Aye.
Yep. I could have done
I just didn't know if you heard the second.
Okay.
that. Okay, at this time, we will
I know, I'm sorry.
continue the public hearing for a special permit for John DeValley, 0 Maple Street, map 1, lot 4. The Form A application continued for John DeValley, 0 Maple Street, map 1, lot 4. 0 Oak Street, map 6, lot 6, and map 6, lot 7. Okay, I think last time we were here, we
James
just
Hall.
asked you to break it up so the retreat lots are separated from the Form A lots.
We did have that, we have submitted it. I think the only loose end, I've not heard back. I think Mr. Williams is all set, I haven't heard anything. Kerry has brought up, something the chief had brought up, something about the width maybe of the driveway, or
The chief requested the exact measurements of the driveways. He couldn't
Okay.
tell from the plans that were submitted and that I sent to him.
So if I could offer to the board, if you want to condition that, I mean, the 12-foot wide or whatever the board feels, it's not in the regs. So also, we're not more than 500, so it says over 500, we're supposed to go to the chief. We're under 500, but obviously we want to satisfy the chief, so if the board so feels that 10, 12, 15 feet is the typical width, since it's not in the regs, we have no objection to that.
Normally, he would request at minimum a 12-foot driveway with 4 feet, or 8 feet on one side, or 4 on 4, of whether it be stone or anything you can drive on. Looking for a 20-foot width total.
Okay,
So you're asking us to condition the retreat lot, and you cannot do anything until such time the chief.
Correct, we have the affidavit that states, once we subdivide them, that we're all done.
Have you seen these plans yet?
Yes, I was looking at them earlier.
Okay, all right.
I was looking at them earlier.
So we do have the plans here. We have the special permit plan showing those two. My surveyor, who is away on vacation, basically put the Mylar, and how we've done it is we've just basically said these two retreat lots are not buildable until the special permit lot plan, which is underneath here, is obviously approved and recorded.
Have you seen
Sir,
this?
can I see that?
The new ones?
Yeah, that's what we asked them to
That would
do.
be,
Make it,
here would be,
that was nothing
this is the subdivision plan here.
to say
That's the retreat lot plan.
3 and 4 are retreat lots.
Quite frankly, in most towns, we put one plan together and we just call the special permit lots out, and then there's two endorsements we usually put. Special permit for the retreat lots, and then obviously the Form A side. But,
They'll never
yeah,
be
if you want two
divided.
plans, that's fine.
Says 3 and 4, right?
Mhm.
So 12 asphalt.
Subject to any and all conditions of the special permit, the retreat lots depicted on this plan shall never be further divided.
The other thing is that added this note to all these. So it doesn't matter this plan, see A and R plan recorded
This is the
34
Riversack,
page.
this is the buffer
So
zone,
when they
so the
record
buildable areas.
the A and R,
So you
so
can move the
these
retreat lot, you
become
can spin into your
buildable.
driveway.
This plan is not making them buildable.
It's actually
I
showing.
think the chief was worried about the distance of the driveway, the width of the driveway, and also how big the turnaround is.
Right, turnaround we show on the special permit.
Right.
Okay.
So that's 40 wide, obviously, so, if the chairman wants 12, we got, you know,
Okay.
28, 14 feet either side.
Right.
Well, now on this one, he put, oh, that's a
So-
big street.
They'll approve the special permit, and then you bring in the plans for endorsement after you get the book and page for these two.
These are the retreat lots.
You understand
Right,
that?
because you want to procedurally get that special
What is the
permit
Form A,
first.
right? Yeah, see, on this one, he put those two lots are not buildable because they're
It's the
already
first time since I saw him briefly before I went on vacation.
What does it say, riverfront area?
There's a mix it up here, right? It makes up his frontage on the street.
I am, everything down there is white. Oh, yeah. Everything there's white.
This is the A and R.
They're gonna worry about the refit.
So, if I could, Mr. Chair, just to make sure I'm clear on it, the special permit would have a decision that needs to go on appeal for 20 days, correct? And then after that is, assuming no appeal, we would then record that, get the book and page for that, and then able to record the Form A plan, which I suppose you could endorse tonight, because we basically make the statement that these are not buildable lots until that appeal is up.
Well, we
With
went
the-
And
anyway.
he also requires the covenant. on the
Legally,
plan.
they're not
It
buildable
requires
lots
the
until the
deed.
special permit's endorsed and 20-day appeal is
We
up.
do have a copy of the covenant in the package here.
Oh,
Yeah,
did it?
well, I don't have the signed one, all I have is the draft from your attorney.
Yeah, that's
So I
all we
don't-
have. We haven't signed it yet because I think we have a couple steps before we can get to the point.
So we'll need that, but you also have to record that with a deed
Yeah, they-
restriction.
Right.
Correct.
There's a deed restriction that goes with that as well, not
Right,
just
they
the
say you can't
covenant.
get any building permits till that's all taken care of.
Correct.
Can I offer that it would be at the 20-day appeal period, that's when, obviously, that would be all mopped up into one thing, right? The affidavit of that, the special permit endorsed by the board, and then,
Typically, what we've been doing is when they approve the special permit, and it's during that appeal period that's going on. The deed restriction is drafted and given to me, emailed to me for our council to review. So
Okay.
during that time, it's under review while we're waiting for the appeal
Okay.
to
Once we get the
expire.
appeal done, we endorse the plans.
Fair
because
enough.
you've got that
And then
recorded.
everything gets released at that point, once the appeal period is over, and then there's no appeal made, and we have an approved deed restriction from our council, then everything will get signed and then released to be recorded.
Okay.
So we need, well, how many plans we got here? Just those two, right?
Right, which have been separated. That was requested, both of these plans were separated.
As with the townhouse?
So we're needing, yeah, it's just a copy, we can endorse them in the office.
So do we have a Mylar on?
Yeah, we have to.
You have both. Yes, the separation's been made. Because this is the other mile Bob was gonna look at. You're gonna see that. It's gone over the lot too.
Okay, but it's not showing.
Okay.
That's because the approval not required.
This is Form A. The same on the 17th.
Bob,
All right, okay. Sorry, this is the first time seeing this, so.
Oh, absolutely, take your time.
the A&R plan can't show all the details.
That's right,
because of
yeah.
Letter sizing requirements.
Yeah, because that's the special permit.
Okay, I gotcha.
And they can't, correct me if I'm wrong, they can't, my survey tells me the board cannot endorse a Mylar with a special permit lots on it. 'Cause it's not an A and R and it's not a Form C, it's neither. So you need to, that's what, you need to have the document that you're talking about that
In order to
approves it, as
record it,
opposed to
right.
the Mylar like an A and R where you're endorsing it.
For the special permit,
Correct, right.
right.
I mean, we could endorse this one.
You can endorse that, and you can actually endorse the one because it says on the A and R plan that those lots are not buildable until such time that the special permit is through the appeals process.
Well, I think we would want to see the recorded deed restrictions.
Before you sign the A and R.
Yeah, you don't have to come to a meeting, we go in the office and
Okay,
do it.
that's fair enough, I'm sure Mr. Diwali has no objection
Yeah,
to that.
that's fine, thanks.
All right, so the first motion we're looking for would be one on the approval not required plan on map 6, lots 6 to 7, Maple Swamp Road and Oak Street, Dayton, Mass.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that in the form of a motion that we approve the not approval, not required, map 6, lots 6 and 7, Maple Swamp Road in Oak Street, Dayton, Mass.
Second.
Okay, motion is made and seconded to approve the aforementioned plan, map and lot number 6, lot 6, 7, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries. We can sign, we don't want to sign this one tonight.
You want to keep this in your possession for the appeal period? Or no?
I don't think
It really doesn't matter, right? 'Cause-
I haven't seen it.
Oh, really? Okay.
One you can approve, the other we can't because we have to make
Probably a week and a half. After Tony.
I thought it was my.
Yeah.
Do you have other copies of this? Or do we need to go in the office and
What's
sign
that?
it?
Yeah, we need,
Other
do
copies?
you have paper copies of that? Is
I
that?
do, right here. How many was there? What do you need?
Well, we can make a motion with the condition,
Special permit.
conditions that.
You want that?
The lots, the A&R, correct? Is it just,
And fire
I know, it's very confusing.
chief said,
This is the A and R, all but the special permit.
But the special
Meaning that,
permit, okay.
They sign paper.
It's a confusing
Yes,
one.
they do, because assessor, our office in town clerk has to have a file.
Yeah, most things do that.
Oh, did I miss it? Not an A&R, no. This is true, it's a continued public hearing.
Yeah, you're,
Checks in the office.
yeah.
First official.
This would be the A and R, so if you're endorsing the A and R, then these could be endorsed now. And then, for the record, you want 5 special permit plans also.
Yes.
Okay. So here, why don't you take
I'll
over?
hang on to
Those, you
these. So
want to
this is
endorse
the
those?
A&R. 6,
Okay.
6, 7.
This is the special permit after the 20
After
years.
the appeal, okay. So this one's, hold on, so, appeal, just, on that, on those emails, we had CC the fire chief, so we have his email address. I just need you, he wants the exact measurements of the driveway and the turnaround. That's what he was looking for, was the exact measurements of that.
So when then,
Yeah.
we're gonna be doing this up in the design too, and that will be a couple more details for him. If he wants whatever he needs, I mean, the board wants to find it, so we'll show that, and then we'll show the turnaround. We show the turnaround, but,
It shows the turnaround, but he wanted the measurements.
okay.
That's what he couldn't see on the plans, was the measurements of it.
Cool. I got the guy who came in, he's the guy.
Okay. 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 I just think,
Special permit lots only, so
I see.
they've endorsed this.
that's the
You got the
appeal.
paper to endorse, correct?
That, yep, that's what this is. This is the special permit.
Right, so they wanna endorse these now, too.
Is that the A&R? No special permits on that. Right.
Special permit lots only.
Oh, wait, is that the one that they already did though? They did one already.
Oh, did they?
You know what, why don't we sign these at the office?
Yeah.
Because we gotta
You
move
got
along
two
with-
sets here,
We're
so
already
when you
delayed.
wanna do them,
We're already
we can
delayed
wait
on
the
some
3 weeks
public
or
hearings
whatever,
going
4 weeks
forward
to
here.
wrap it up, it's fine.
So
by me.
where's the one special permit one?
Those I have. The paper I have, you have a Mylar, there's,
You have a Mylar there?
there was a
Okay,
A&R
you
that
see
was
that.
already signed.
Tony, last week.
We're gonna be, moving on to the second part of this continued public hearing, which would be the 2 retreat lots. And I believe there's probably people here that would like to speak to this. These are the 2 retreat lots on Oak Street. We've discussed it up here. Is there any comments from any of the neighbors up there about anything? We pretty much, I think, talked about it a lot last time, so. So, as we discussed, we could approve this conditional with the recording of the deed restriction, the input from the fire chief, and the third one? What was it?
Is the covenant.
The covenant, the recording of the covenant. So,
And there's, I suggest one other, that the plan will need the addition of the A&R lots. On the special permit plan, will need the addition of the A&R lots that are on the paper plans now before endorsement. Because there's 2 blank spaces,
yeah, right.
those will have to be added.
Say that again, make sure I understand.
The
This is-
special permit plan has these blanks down here on lots 1 and 2 and 5 and 6.
Oh, right.
Those will be have to be
Oh, yeah,
added
yeah,
before
okay.
the
Right,
board can
once we get that
sign
booking
them.
page,
Yes.
right, I agree,
So those
yep.
are the 3 conditions. If somebody would like to make 4 conditions, make a motion.
I'll make that in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman. That the applicant come back with the information from the fire chief, the covenants, and also the deed restriction paperwork.
Second.
And lot numbers.
And
And
lot
lot
numbers.
Okay, motion made and seconded, to be approved with those conditions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Alright,
All opposed? Okay. There was no public, input, I would imagine. I already asked, I just wanted to double check, make sure. Okay. We'll endorse these in the office, once we get everything back.
Got it. I know.
Thank you.
Item to table before the.
Excuse me?
Thank you, have a good evening. Thank you.
Before the,
The first one?
yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't a public hearing, right?
Mr.
Gardner here.
Administrative assistant, please.
Not yet. Okay. Next order of business, public hearing, residential subdivision, Stephen and Kerry Jones, 721 Middle Street, map 9, lot 75.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'm gonna have to recuse myself because I was involved with the decision with the zoning board of appeals.
Okay, thank you. Is there the newspaper article?
It should be right on the front of your, package, it's not there. So this is the article that was in the paper.
Okay.
It's the same thing, I just figured it'd be
Okay.
easier to read.
Legal notice, Dayton Planning Board, April 17th, 2019, 6:15 PM, Town Hall, lower level conference room, 979 Somerset Ave, Dayton, Mass. In accordance with the provision of Chapter 41, Section 81T, Mass General Laws, the Planning Board will hold a public hearing on the application of Stephen and Kerry Jones for the approval of a residential definitive subdivision plan located at 721 Middle Street, Dayton, being shown as Assessors Map 9, Lot 75, containing 8.42 acres of land. The applicant proposes a two-lot subdivision located in a business and residential agricultural district. All interested persons should attend the hearing. Copies of the plans are available for inspection in the Planning Board office, 979 Somerset Avenue, Dayton, Mass, during normal business hours. Dayton Planning Board, Thomas Myers, Vice Chairman, Robert Warner, Clerk, Robert Woods, Member, Joseph Figurito, Member. So, is there someone here representing the
Good evening.
applicant?
Yep,
Okay.
I'm Rachel Smith. I'm from Otis Dyer's office. I'm representing Stephen and Kerry Jones. So this is not really a typical subdivision, as I think you've probably seen by looking at it. The Joneses own this property, which has an existing house on it. They also own about 20 acres of land way in the back of this property. And there is an existing farm road which leads back to the 20-acre parcel. So they want to sell the house out front, which is number 721. And so they want to divide off a parcel of land which will allow them to continue to access their land in the rear. So they did, because this is a pre-existing non-conforming lot, it doesn't have enough frontage to be divided. So they did go to the zoning board of appeals in order to get a variance from the frontage requirement. That variance was granted. However, because the ZBA variance involves frontage, that then kicks this into the definitive subdivision rather than being just a typical Form A. So that's why we're in front of you with a definitive subdivision, because of the frontage variance. However, they're not actually proposing what we think of as a subdivision. There will be no construction, they're not proposing any roads, any additional houses, anything like that. It's just so that they can retain the access strip to get to the backland.
Okay. I had some time to review the zoning board decision plus the plan. Of course, you know, what we're doing here is taking a non-conforming lot and making it more non-conforming.
True.
correct?
Yes,
It has like 165 feet frontage, and we're taking that 40 feet away and reducing it to 125,
yes.
which is the frontage. So that being said, the access road is 40 feet wide. Now, can I ask why you didn't make that an easement instead of a road?
You know, it's very difficult to sell a piece of property that somebody else has an easement over. It really makes it a lot more difficult. And the other thing is, it is a potential retreat lot sometime in the future, if
Well,
they actually own the,
It's not really, because a portion of that is business zoned. The entire retreat lot has to be in a residential district.
oh, okay.
So you wouldn't be able to do a retreat lot
Okay.
out of that in the future.
All right, well then it still comes back to that first part, of which it's really more difficult to have a right-of-way over somebody else's property.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well-
that
well-
causes a whole host of problems, and
Well-
it does make it tough to
Right.
sell.
Now, I don't know what the hardship was, other than the fact that property's landlocked. But I believe that by selling that front property, it's a self-induced hardship, because that front property directly abuts the rear property. I know they've granted the variance,
Right, right, that was
Uh,
really a ZBA issue.
and you're in front of us with a Form C to try to
Right.
get our approval so they can get the subdivision recorded.
Right.
Um,
They don't live in this house, so they don't desire to retain the house anymore.
Now, the Farm Road, and I know that's just a name that somebody gave it, because I
Yeah.
checked the deeds, and there is no easements or right
No,
of ways
no,
or
it's just a
anything.
gravel
So,
driveway used for
Um,
access the back.
just want you to be clear that even if it's an easement or the retreat lot, it's not gonna happen
Okay.
because of the business. Is he still farming it?
I'm not sure, I think right now they have somebody who may be going to use it as a hayfield.
Okay, it's not in chapter land,
Is that in chapter 69? No.
okay. You know, I have my concerns about granting this, but I'd like to hear from the remainder of the board. It's, you know, I can start over here with Mr. Boner.
I do have my reservations. I think it's something we really haven't done before, so it's kind of new to this board. So I'm trying to grasp all areas of it and see what you're trying to do here.
Is there a plan of the entire parcel?
You know, what you see in front of
Yeah,
you.
that's it.
Is what we get?
This one?
No, we have,
Have you seen this plan?
Yes.
That's a copy of what we
Well,
have.
This doesn't
Right.
show the 20 acres it ends
no,
up.
no.
No, the 20 acres in the back was a totally separate piece, and,
But it's all gonna join to this road, ma'am?
yes, yes.
Now, this road is part of,
Right now, this whole thing is one piece that went with the house. And then they also had a separate 20-acre piece in the back. But they really wanna get rid of the house.
So this house
And just
lot,
keep
if
the
you
back
reduce
in.
it, it's still gonna be 6.39 acres. It's gonna come all the way back.
Right,
Right.
6.39 acres will stay with the house. Going all the
But they
way
wanna
back.
subdivide this, so let's just say, for instance, a solar farm or somebody like that wants to use this road to get to this 20 acres, right?
Yep,
Then these poor people are gonna have trucks running right by their house all day long. Right?
personally, I think it would be pretty tough to get a solar farm back there
Oh,
that
believe
far
me.
off the road, but,
Although we have them further back than this, man.
Yeah.
yeah.
We got
It
them way
is.
out there. You know?
You don't even know they're there.
I
What's
mean,
the overall-
it's pretty hard
4
to
feet.
think of every possibility that
no,
might come up in the
frontage.
future.
yeah,
With this, it's becoming Solar City, so.
164.
Right, but I mean,
But-
if they
Yeah.
retain the thing,
That means
if they retain the
everything is
house and all the
non-conforming.
land, you'd still have that theoretical possibility of a
Yeah, I just
solar
don't think it's
farm.
right putting a crunch on this lot. You know, I live where I live is close, and I tell you, I don't wanna be close.
6.39 acres is gonna go with the house, right?
Correct. and reduce the frontage to basically 125.
Right. Which I think, I mean, as
I'm
long,
still lost here.
but-
I'm very slow, so.
No, that's
I'll
okay.
just try to-
so this was the original, this is the original lot from this stone
Yes,
wall over to
yes.
here. Back,
All the way
so-
back
Right,
here.
and they wanna take 40 feet of frontage and keep this
To
strip
get back
so
here.
that they can continue to access their land in the back. And then this, 6.39 acres, would still be with the house. So the house would still have over 6
Okay.
acres.
I,
But
No.
instead of the roughly 165 feet frontage, it would have about 125 feet frontage.
Did you go with the 40 feet thinking perhaps that could be a retreat lot down the road? Because you really only need 20.
No, actually, I think we originally were talking about it narrower, and, was there any
Yeah, we were
particular
talking
reason
about
for the
narrower,
40?
But they told me to go with the 40 feet, that's what they
I
told me
think
to
that
go
was
with.
what the ZBA,
Yeah.
recommended.
Probably, well, you could, there's a few things you could do it if we agree to it. If we weren't cutting out 40 feet of the frontage of that property, you could do a, you could put a subdivision back there, you could put a 40B. But at this point, our dilemma is reducing the frontage and making two non-conforming lots right now. And this is just something I'm throwing out for my own, I don't even know if the board might agree.
I think there may actually be a way of restricting or putting a restriction on the deed that whoever owns this land back here will have the access, will be able to use this as an access road to the back. So it's sort of like an easement.
I think it would have to be formal easement though. As they're selling that house.
Yeah,
Right.
it would have to be worded as an easement.
It would have to be in the deed as a
I'm sure there's
permanent
gotta
easement.
be ways of putting a restriction or something on a deed that says that whoever owns this land here will have the right to access that.
There certainly are ways to do easements and rights of ways. They aren't as clear cut as actually owning the land. It tends to have more issues because then, the owner of the land might be concerned about liability or anything that
just-
might happen on the
I'm just
easement.
concerned that if we grant this, if we allow this, then we're gonna probably have a lot more to grant in the future. We open a lot of doors for this. I don't know, I'm just.
We have a land auction periodically every 2 years. It is for landlocked property. 9 out of 10 times, a homeowner will buy the property behind them
Right.
to add to their piece of property. Now, if we were to grant something such as this, then all those people that are in that same situation, this was not the intent of our retreat lot, and you're not presenting it as a retreat lot.
No, we're not. No.
If you wanna farm the land only, I think an easement is the best way to go, and I think if you got an easement with solar back there, that's just a suggestion. I don't think the board has an appetite for reducing, but we can vote. I mean, that's why we're here. So, anybody other comments on the plan up here? Woody?
I would make a motion to continue the hearing till May 1st. And get some legal counsel advice. And maybe look into it a little further, because we don't wanna open up a can of worms and do it for these people. Then you're gonna have other people come and asking for the same thing. We wanna make a decision what's in the best interest of the town of Dayton, not just the applicant.
Right.
So, I would like to make a motion to continue the hearing
Well, let
until
me,
May the 1st.
let me get some public input.
Sure.
first. Any public input on this?
Yes, Mr. Byers, Mr. Woods. Basically, you just, explained exactly what my sister and I thought, and I can speak for, Mr. Coster also. We also have land with, that we could subdivide in the back, and I feel like this is opening up a whole Pandora's box of, issues, because we would be able to do the same thing for our property.
Because I have an acre and a half behind my house, and I could do the same thing, a subdivision and,
Well, for a retreat lot, which is what they're talking, well, at least it's, I think the intent, you would need 8 acres for a retreat lot in the back.
you know,
But
right
even
across
still-
the street and the traffic and,
Yeah, you wouldn't be able, they can't do it because it's a business zone up for 300 feet. And the entire parcel must be residential. So that's out of the question. The question we're facing is, are we gonna allow a 40-foot road or even a 20-foot and reduce the frontage of a non-conforming parcel to make it more non-conforming to access the back parcel?
Right, that's another question I have is, I have a piece of property that's 3 acres, and we had a variance on it in 1997 because it was a non-conforming lot, because it only had 92 feet of frontage. The variance was granted, the parcel did not get built on, so it lapsed. So in 2005, went for another variance, it got denied. But my question is I was told that it can be a subdividable lot, but I need 75 feet of frontage to put an access road, you know, to make it a 2-lot parcel.
How long ago was that?
2005.
Anybody ever heard of that?
No,
I've
So
not- I've never
my
heard.
question is you need a 75-foot,
40 foot is,
you
no,
only need 40
50
feet
foot,
to put
50
a
foot
access
road,
road in.
50-foot entrance
well, with the
with a
cuts.
radius.
Yeah.
So it's a 50-foot entrance.
That's correct.
Okay,
no, I
not
think it's a
75.
bit more than that.
Hmm?
You have to have a 25-foot radius, I think you need 25 on each side, and
I think the overall.
40-foot minimum is the right-of-way,
So now we're looking at
Right,
90
plus the
feet
radius.
because of the
which is
radius.
25 on each
Right.
side.
To get it.
25 on each
90
side.
feet.
Gotcha.
It's more like 90 feet.
More like 90 feet, okay. That's my
And
question.
that,
The roadway is a minimum of 40, but when you add the road cuts.
Right, so you're looking at 90 feet. Okay,
so-
very good.
so they couldn't do a subdivision here unless they were granted a waiver from the planning board because of, but a 40B could get possibly,
Right.
I mean, I can't really speak to that, but knowing from a practical standpoint, to build a 2,000-foot road, and you have a couple of crossings there and wetlands and
You're
stuff like
crossing the
that,
wetlands twice.
to get to
It
the
wouldn't-
back
it wouldn't
doesn't
even
seem
be
very
feasible.
practical.
No, but to do.
Solar companies will do that, man, because they
So, I
did
mean, a
that,
40B,
they did that up on Elm Street, they crossed 2 wetlands to get to that back piece.
that's potential.
Right, they went right
potential,
over it.
right.
We approved it,
A housing subdivision
We
or
approved
40B,
it,
I
is what
don't
I'm
see
telling
it, yeah.
right?
Yeah, there's quite a few wetlands.
Well, I didn't vote for it, but they
Yeah.
approved it.
Sunken Brook goes through there on both.
Right, there's a couple of culverts going across there now, but I mean, that wouldn't be sufficient for
Yeah.
a subdivision.
I still think you're better off with an easement going back to farm the property.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Tom on that. I think it's better off going with that easement.
well,
But,
that's their choice.
Joe,
Yeah.
I agree. It should be an easement.
Yeah, but I would seek legal counsel.
Hmm?
Seek legal.
Seek legal counsel?
I make a motion to continue the hearing until May the 1st.
Second.
okay, motion's made and seconded to continue the hearing until May 1st, so we can obtain legal.
That's our next meeting,
Counsel?
right, May 1st?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, come back
Thank
with us
you.
on May 1st.
Now, the question is, are we the ones that are going to build
For
legal counsel?
the general, yeah. We'll just get a legal opinion. Like we did.
I'm not, they're not charging, I'm not charging them any time for this one. Just so you know.
Yeah. I already told you that, so that's okay. That's yours, eh?
No, that's the one, just give it to Carrie.
Okay, moving on to the next item of business. I apologize, we're a little late on the public hearing. BWC Green Book LLC, care of Blue Wave Solar, site plan, special permit, 903 Tremont Street, map 8, lot 27.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, good evening. Have to read the legal notice that was posted. Legal notice, Dayton Planning Board, Town Hall, lower level conference room, notice of public hearing, April 17th, 2019, 6:30 PM. Notice is hereby given, the Dayton Planning Board will conduct a public hearing on the special permit application and site plan review by BWC Greenbrook LLC, care of Blue Wave Solar, to construct a 2.8 megawatt DC large-scale ground-mounted solar photovoltaic system at 903 Tremont Street, being shown as Assessors Map 8, Lot 27, pursuant to sections 4600 and 5400 of the Town of Dayton zoning bylaws. Copies of the plans are available for inspection in the Planning Board office, 979 Somerset Avenue, Dayton, Mass, during normal business hours. Dayton Planning Board, Thomas Byers, Vice Chairman, Robert Mona, Clerk, Robert Woods, Member, Joseph Figurito, Member. Okay.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Drew Pearson. I'm here representing the applicant, BWC Greenbrook. And I'm here with my team, Rich Riccio of Field Engineering, our engineer on the project. Tom Reedy, our land use attorney with Bacon Wilson, and Connor Stedman with Appleseed Permaculture, the firm that has helped us with putting this visual screening plan together. I wanted to thank you all for the informal discussion we had on the 3rd, and just to kind of recap where we were and where we are now and how we've gotten here. We held a community meeting on April 2nd, in which a fair number of abutters had shown up to the old, I think the old townhouse next door to here. We discussed the initial site plan that we had submitted, and had an open discussion about concerns and questions from the neighbors, and took the subsequent week and a half or so to digest what we heard, figure out how we could amend the site plan to reflect responses to those concerns, and that is the plan that we'll be discussing with you today. So we had also taken some time to put together both materials and to share the site plan, with specific abutters that had specific questions prior to the meeting, just to keep that dialogue open and all of us informed of what we're talking about here. And I'd say with that, our goal today is just to continue this conversation and talk about the tools at our disposal to help address any issues or questions that arise today. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Rich, if you wanted to recap some of the design adjustments that we've gone through, and
Can I
and take
just
things from there.
interrupt for a moment? Has everybody, all the abutters seen the proposed plan? Did you all go to the,
We received a
Public-
revised copy yesterday via email.
okay, you've all seen the plan?
Just the 4 of us received it, I don't think you guys.
Okay, you haven't seen the plan? Would you mind, anybody who hasn't seen it can take a moment and go look at it, and I think they'd be happy to explain what they're doing. So if you wanna just come right up and look at the plan, give you a heads up of what's going on, and they can point out what their plan is going forward.
Great.
Okay, so what is this right here?
That is the graph. Why don't I just present the
Okay.
plan to everybody, and then we can, there's other questions. So this is approximately 2.8 megawatt array, about 7,000 panels within the fenced footprint. The original plan, this differs slightly from the original plan, well, not slightly, significantly in some areas, from the original plan that was submitted. Like Drew said, we took into account some of the comments from the abutters. If you see the package you have there, the original array went right up to the 50-foot setback line that we were allowed under the zoning behind these houses here. In this area here, we pretty much kept this the same. To offset that, we pushed back into these woods a bit. We've got under 3 acres total clearing of trees on the site. The rest of the proposed work is within the actual active farm fields. As we discussed with both the abutters and with you at our informal meeting, the intent of this project is to create a dual use of the property, of both the solar array itself and then active agricultural use beneath the panels. The access road we have proposed is 20 feet wide with a 100-foot wide gravel turnaround. We are proposing crushed stone filtered trenches on either side of that to take any of the runoff from the gravel road before it gets to the agricultural uses. Another change we made to the plans from what was submitted is we relocated the equipment pad as far south as we could to get it away from the houses as far as possible. The screening on the plan, I know we talked a bit about that with not being able to see the array from the street or from the neighbors. As we have here, we've pulled this to about 200 feet off of these property lines. There's a screening line here of juniper, which we have our consultant on the landscaping side of things that could discuss a little bit more on that. And then along the front, the Tremont and Middle Street side, we actually are proposing an earthen berm with an 8-foot high fence, solid fence, either the chain with slats or a solid fence for screening of that from that viewport. There's a lot of native vegetation that does grow up within that stone wall there, which left untouched would
Will the
also.
stone wall staying in place?
Yes, yes, that stone wall along the street is staying in place. We also have notation on the plan. There's a barway that comes through here, which is gonna be retained. They're gonna work around that with the array. And there's some historic stone walls that come into the property as well that are being retained. I did prepare a cross-sectional view of the, might be kind of difficult to see. We did a cross-section from Tremont Street looking up the hill, straight across the field. This is to scale here with the berm, the earthen berm and the fence to scale shown with a viewport of approximately 7-foot high eye view, looking over the fence, showing that view is gonna
That's
be.
heading west on Tremont Street?
Yeah, that's standing right here.
Okay.
Yeah, standing or sitting in a 7-foot high eye level. We do have the opportunity between the fence and the stone wall to do some additional plantings if necessary to screen that berm. Right now, we've got the berm and the fence shown on the plan. We did receive Mr. Williams' comment letter dated, I think it's March 27th. In the process of putting together a formal response to all your comments. I don't see anything that we can't address. And that would be forthcoming. We did wanna, get comments back from the board and come back with one final package addressing their comments, hopefully addressing the abutters' comments, and understanding that this would go to a second meeting. Andrew, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that. You can keep the plan here, and we can just open it up to questions on the plan.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that, we, appreciate the opportunity to sit with everybody and we're gonna have this dialogue prior to this meeting today, and we feel that this plan reflects a lot of effort that we've made to digest some of the concerns that we've heard and try to address them. So we're happy to have an open discussion regarding any questions.
No, what, I have one already. Now the screening to the northwest,
This here.
yeah, that's, you mentioned last time, that's gonna go all the way to the tree line?
It's wrapped around to the wetland buffer zone line here. This area here will be revegetate naturally.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the intent of that plan. A number of.
What's that screening gonna be? Is that a fence or?
No, this is
vegetation?
plantings, junipers.
Chinese chestnuts or what?
Yeah, so the species being proposed for that part of the screening are the eastern red cedar, the Juniperus virginiana, and then the hybrid poplars. And then that would grade into wetland, native wetland shrub vegetation once it hits the wetland buffer.
What's the growth rate yearly?
The
The height?
So on the Virginia juniper, they usually get to 20 to 30 feet, and they grow 1 to 3 feet per year, usually 1 to 2. And then the hybrid poplars, they'll eventually get to 60 feet, and they grow 4 to 8 feet a year, depending on rainfall and irrigation.
Were there more people at the community meeting? You guys were there? Anybody there? Were there more people there? Or about the same amount?
This is pretty much the same group.
Pretty much the same crew?
Did I
Can
recall?
I just ask a quick question? This is the first I'm hearing about this, so I just want to know, what is the town benefiting from this?
Taxes, man.
Tax money?
Yeah,
Okay.
tax revenue.
Okay.
And does the tax change from farm to commercial?
The property tax will change from chapter land that it's in now to commercial land. And the last meeting, I think, they said that they were gonna pay all the taxes
Yeah, that's our conventional
so that the farmer
arrangement.
didn't have to, because there was
Yeah.
another farmer in town who got stiffed with the taxes and he didn't realize it was gonna be more. So we're trying to look out for the resident, I'm trying to look out for the residents, every way we can. But I wanna hear from the residents.
Well, my concern is, we have a baby on the way. I'm Josh Medina.
I'm sorry, so any residents that make a comment, I need your name and address for the record.
All right, I'm Josh Medina, 1069 Tremont Street. I live right above here, just right here. We had mentioned our concerns in the last meeting, about issues with, research on cancer situations, you hear all these situations with the high tension lines and stuff like that.
Electromagnetic field.
Stuff like that, exactly. There's been plenty of research on that, because there's been, lines running for years. But, we're 20 years into solar farms, solar fields, whatever. Where's the research on it? How are you gonna guarantee that my child that's in my wife's stomach right now is
And
gonna,
our
and our
3-year-old.
2-year-old, 3-year-old, yeah, is not gonna have any concerns later on, or us, or, these folks in the future, or anybody else around? How do you guarantee that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say we've done,
Can't guarantee it.
we've done the research, since that meeting, and I appreciate your concern, because
Yeah.
I probably feel the same way if I were in your shoes.
Yeah.
And, looking objectively, I mean, electromagnetic radiation comes in a variety of forms, right? You've got the extremely low frequency radiation on like the very left-hand side, so it's like low frequency. And then on the very right-hand side, you've got, X-rays, gamma rays, like the very high, frequency form of EMF. And so that's divided between non-ionizing and ionizing radiation, which means that non-ionizing, which is like, what you would find from electronics, from distribution or transmission or solar farms, all the way up to microwave, television waves, radio waves, etc. By its very nature, doesn't have enough energy to break molecular bonds in cells, and it's the nature of it being non-ionizing, which I guess is another way of kind of prompting this very definitive conclusion that the scientific community has made, that there is no conclusive evidence that non-ionizing radiation poses any health risk. There have been studies done about whether there's impacts, for example, from high voltage power lines on children and on adults, whether there is a linkage between certain health outcomes, but there's been no definitive evidence to suggest that there's any correlation whatsoever, and that's right.
Yes.
But in the same right, so for perspective, like the report that we sent, there was a report done by the Mass Clean Energy Center, so that you can measure EMF, in very easily. You can go get a meter and stand underneath, you can stand in front of your TV or underneath your power. Right, yeah. So the study found that at the edge of the solar farm, solar farms, that EMF is either at background levels that we experience every day. 'Cause, I mean, we as human beings emit EMF because we create electricity. I mean, everything that has an electrical charge emits EMF. So there's a background level of EMF, just by virtue of us being on planet Earth. So
there's an international commission that sets a standard for basically, acceptable exposure to EMF, for humans, and it's measured in a unit called milligauss. And I have a report here I'm happy to share with the planning board. It's the same information that we've given to them. And 833 milligauss is the level of exposure that this international commission set, as acceptable kind of for human health. And so for perspective, 833 over a given period of time, and solar farms at the edge emit 0.2 to 0.4 milligauss, which is negligible. I mean, background levels are 0.2 or less. And for perspective, sitting in front of your computer at a distance of less than 3 feet will expose you to 5 to 20 milligauss, over a given period of time. Your television, you could turn a blender on, and it's hundreds of milligauss just by virtue of using a blender. So I at least feel confident that looking at the data and how things are measured, that having a desk job or having a TV in your home poses more of a health risk just by virtue of this sort of standard of measurement than low voltage solar
microwave
panels.
and my TV and my blender all day long, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year either, so. Yeah, a little longer.
Well, we have, the power lines that we have above our homes, for example. If you go stand under three-phase power that's already in Dayton, if you stand right under it, it's 5 milligauss directly underneath of it. But so that's, again.
And now we're adding more.
Well, I mean, this is standard electrical infrastructure that we're around all the time. So, I mean, unfortunately, it's not really much I can say there. But, again, the level of EMF drops precipitously the further away that you get. And again, just bringing it back to, measurements, of EMF. And actually in this report, it was at a distance of 50 feet is background levels from, for solar farms. And so again, it's a very well cited study that I'm happy to share with the board, but at least in looking at the comparative information and weighing the relative risks that this might presumably pose, I would maybe argue that there's a lot more in our daily life that we should be worried about.
That converts it.
Any other questions back there?
Well, yeah, you're the same.
Yes, sir.
Chris Viera, 1060 Tremont Street. What about the transfer station that you're gonna build? The inverter system?
Yes.
What does that put out?
Yeah, so at a distance of 10 feet, it goes up to about 100 to 500 milligauss, but when you get greater than 10 feet, it drops precipitously to background levels within the footprint of the solar array.
Is there three-phase on Tremont Street now?
There is single phase, but I mean, there's three phase.
Okay, so we're introducing induction. Because you want,
There are residential communities throughout Dayton that have three-phase power. I mean, this is something that we're around.
Tremont Street doesn't.
Sure, but again, if you spend all your time directly underneath your three-phase power, that, I mean, arguably is as much exposure as your computer. But I would doubt that you spend all your time underneath three-phase power lines that,
I had my hands in 460 today, three-phase. So I spent a lot of time under it. I don't need any more help.
Anybody else?
I'm a licensed electrician, so that's what I do.
So, Kevin Travers, 1117 Tremont Street. So, thank you for soliciting, listening to, and adjusting the plan based on the feedback we had in the community. The main point that was already made was the health concerns. A couple of the other ones was, hey, what is this going to do to our property value? That's a major concern that I didn't see in the material you provided to us. We had asked, you've done previous projects in the state, what has that done for adjacent and abutting property values long-term, right? Additionally, these panels are different than typical solar panels in the sense that they're gonna be 15 feet high, right? Is that 14, 15 feet high?
correct.
So I understand that there's a lot going into blocking those views from an aesthetic standpoint, but the gentleman to your left said, what, 1 to 3 feet of growth per year? So we're waiting 5 years to not see the peaks of those, right?
Well, I think there's a couple points to respond to here. I mean, at least on the real estate, piece, I don't know, Tom, maybe you've seen this in a lot of communities as well, but I mean, I know that I'm not aware of any, information that is out there that conclusively proves, or not, that, that there is a measurable impact on property value. And I mean, I guess, kind of just taking a step back, this is a working farm. And this is not, an APR protected farm. There, in fact, I don't believe that there are any, maybe there's one APR protected farm in all of Dayton. There are a lot of things that come with living next to a farm, including, iterations of what might be necessary for a farm's business plan.
Sure.
And I think that, this project, unlike many others that you might see, is actually playing a very integral part, not just in the business plan per se, but actually in keeping the land in farming. Because, if it's not, then there are bigger issues to kind of think about with respect to what the future of this site, might be.
Can I have a comment about the future of the site? Can you explain to everyone in the room how this changes hands? I know you had spoken to that you're not gonna own, or your company doesn't own this. It's gonna change hands and be sold. So what are the guarantees that these future owners are going to do the due diligence, the maintenance, the upkeep on this? Because I believe you said it has the potential to change hands numerous times in the future.
Yeah, I mean, typically, these...
If I may, put in a little bit. If this does go through, we're probably gonna require like a landscape bond to take care of certain things and make sure that they are gonna do what they say they were gonna do. But, my big issue is with the visual aspects of the seeing it. Okay, I said this before, it's in our bylaw, and this is what it says in our bylaw. Abutting properties shall be visually screened to mitigate impacts of the abutting properties. The screening shall consist of any one of the combination of the following: distance, location, planting, existing vegetation, and/or fencing. So we're talking 15-foot high solar arrays, right? You're driving up the hill, as you know, on Tremont Street. There's no way they're gonna be able to hide these. They're gonna be a visual eyesore to us. And that's what we had put in our solar bylaw to protect us from. And here they are before us. I'm sure they're gonna have some fancy explanation about visual screening. But in my eyes, no matter how high that fence is, 8 feet, those arrays are gonna be 15 feet. We're gonna be traveling up the hill. I mean, even if you're walking by, that property goes up and up and up. So the crest of that hill, you're never gonna hide, right? So we're gonna drive up and down Tremont Street for the rest of our lives, looking at solar panels, which was our intent in the beginning when we came up with solar bylaws, to prevent this. And I'm sorry the wordage is not as strong as I would like it to be. Whether or not this will hold up in court, if they decide they wanna take us to court, if we even go that route. But from day one, the intent of the planning board was to make sure we could not see solar arrays from our streets, like you can in Berkeley and other communities. And I am dead set against this. I'm just letting you all know. I don't care if everyone else agrees. I don't care how the board votes. But I'm voting because I don't want to see them. And I'm pro-solar. I think solar is a great thing for the town of Dayton. And we have some great solar projects in the town of Dayton right now. And you can't see them from the road, which I like. I love the environment. You know, I love farming. I like the Cabrals. Mr. Cabral, I know personally, Jimmy's dad and mom. They're great people, hard-working Americans. But I mean, yeah, we know Jimmy, we like Jimmy, but we like the town of Dayton, and we like the way it looks.
If I may say something real quick? I mean, we moved here because I came from Brockton, my wife came from, she was living in Quincy. Both moved out of all those areas to look for a nice quiet area, and granted, it's gonna be very quiet, but we didn't want to see solar panels and industrial, we wanted more of a farm town. And that's what we tried to move away from, and now we're kind of moving it.
If I may say so, there's another way of looking at things, and I'm not taking sides here. I'm here to vote what I think is best for the town. But the other thing that he could do is put a subdivision back there where you'll have 15, 20 houses there. Now, we have to kind of weigh our options, which one is better. Our schools are already overflowing. The solar farm will come in, generate a nice tax revenue for the town. And that's all it is. A subdivision will have a lot of impact on fire, police, and all of that. So we have to kind of weigh our options. Yes, if we have to see it a little bit on top because the trees haven't grown, let's listen to it. Let's pay attention to it. Let's not jump to the conclusions yet.
Joe, just if I may, I'm not jumping to no conclusions, and it's gonna be more than just a little bit. It's clearly here written in the bylaw. You know, I even looked up, what is this mitigated, screening? You know, according to the Bureau of Land Management, what is impact mitigation? You guys must know that, right? Am I the only guy to look it up? I don't know. You must know, you're the attorney?
I am.
Okay. So it's for avoiding, minimizing, rectifying, reducing, or eliminating the impact. You know, so that's what our bylaw says. We don't wanna see it. So how can you make it so we can't see it? That's all I wanna know. I know you got an answer.
Of course. What would I be if I didn't? Yeah, I think mitigate is the key word. Reduce is the key. It's not, I didn't hear eliminate. And so I think, you know, hearing this feedback, maybe going back, taking a look at some of the view shed analysis to see, are there other ways that we can adjust this screening, vegetation, et cetera, so that folks walking, folks traveling won't see it? Or if they do see it, it is gonna be just that blip along the top and not something substantial in their face. Because I think, so I've done a lot of work with Blue Wave just across the state. And one of the things that I'm always impressed with is they do listen to the neighbors. They wanna make sure that it doesn't become an eyesore because reputation follows people. And that will follow them all around the state. And so I think after this, we'll go back, we'll look at what's the height of trees it planted. How quickly are they gonna grow? How quickly will it be screened? And are there other ways that we can screen it effectively so that we can in fact meet that mitigate? I don't know if we can eliminate, but we'll try to mitigate.
I have a question. Can the height of the panels be staggered in height so they are effective to be put on a farm? Can those panels be set at, you say, an 8-foot height? Go to 7-foot height, depending on elevation of where you're raising up, can they be lowered and will they be effective and get the sunshine properly to that panel?
It's a fair question. The type of array that this is will require it to have a minimum of 8 feet at the low end of the panel because this is participating in a state program to pair agriculture with solar. So what this means, we're actually designing this in a way where Jim and other farmers
But are those heights mandatory by what the state's setting?
They are.
Limit? They are.
They are. It's a minimum of 8 feet at the low end of the panel, and, you know, I think that there are, you know, perfectly, you know, objective reasons. You gotta bring a tractor in, you gotta just
Because I
make
have
sure
seen
there's
them in,
clearance.
New Hampshire and Vermont, Maine, and
Right.
where the panels are staggered, depending on if you're on the highway at a certain height where you're still getting the acceptable sunlight to those panels, but it's just done by the elevation as you're going.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not an option for us if we, you know, because the way that the state has structured this is, it's an agricultural subsidy that is sort of paired with energy, and to get that, you know, basically, you know, qualification in that program, we have to build it to that minimum height.
Now, my question in regards to tree plantings, what is the average nominal height that you start at, plantings?
Yeah,
And
so.
you said they usually grow an average of 1 to 3 feet a year. So if you're gonna have an 8-foot array, can you buy 8-foot plants? I know it's very costly, and you can start off with the height that you need, plant, and then they're gonna grow to the height and be out of the vision of the abutters.
Yeah,
I know it's costly to the project itself, but if that's a mitigating factor, then, you know, you have abutters here that are, you know, that's part of the issue, is site also, so.
Yeah, so different answer for the different species of trees in the screening. So the eastern red cedar has a slower growth rate. The hybrid poplars have the much higher growth rate of 4 to 8 feet per year. And they're planted at a taller size also. They're planted at 4 to 6 feet. So the role they're playing in the screening is to reach height quickly and to reach vegetative density quickly. And then the junipers are following after them to do the evergreen component so that it's screened in the winter as
Correct,
well.
I know it would not be probably cost effective to you to start out at the height that would be required, just so they would not be seen, and then you can always call a tree company in to cut later on if they get to be 110 feet when you're 40 years from now.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the trade-off is the success rate, that there's a lower rate of success for these plants if they're planted at 8 to 10 feet versus 4 to 6, but you might.
Sure, yeah, no, it is an option to plant up to usually 6 to 8 feet with the evergreens.
you're
Sometimes you can find 8 to 10.
Replacing with screening that's native to this area.
Correct,
Okay.
yes. Yeah. And the issue as was just said is about that the health and longevity and successful transplanting lowers the larger the trees are at time of planting because of greater transplant shock.
Well, of course, and you'd have to have, deeper root base,
Yep.
distance between, et cetera. et
And so
cetera.
over the long run, the trees that are planted at a 1 to 2 foot height will actually outperform the ones that are planted at taller sizes.
In what year time?
So
If you're at 1 to 2 feet,
yeah, so I'd say on the 20-year time horizon, the 1 to 2 foot one planted ones will do better and be taller than the ones that are planted at 6 to 8 feet.
yeah, but
In 20 years,
What I
we'll be
wanna know is-
decommissioning, correct?
1 to 2 feet now. Next year, how big are they gonna be?
So the evergreens in question grow 1 to 2 feet per year. So
At least gotta wait 3 years.
well, the hybrid poplar component of the screen is planted at 4 to 6 feet, and it grows at 4 to 8 feet per year. So,
Too, if that helps.
so that, and the
But a poplar is like similar to a maple, correct?
it's a broadleaf deciduous tree, yes.
Yeah. So the evergreens are the ones we're most concerned about to cover your mess,
Understood, yeah.
okay?
Because the leaves are gonna fall off. The other
Right,
trees,
right.
And then we'll see the panels.
I guess what we're suggesting is, we were hoping that right down Tremont Street, right around his property, is a wall of green that never loses a leaf.
Yeah, and there's multiple ways that can be accomplished. I mean, it can be accomplished through deeper and denser screening. It can be accomplished through taller trees at time of planting. It can be accomplished through more evergreens, which in this case might trend a little bit away from native species, or it might trend towards larger trees like white pines. So the combinations of those things could be considered too, if that was the outcome we were trying to achieve.
Well, the young man said it all, we're gonna own it, right? You said it all, we're gonna see it daily for the rest of our lives.
Nobody ever listens to me, sir.
Why, Dick, it made sense.
How about you, Gary?
What do I think of it?
What do you think? I value your opinion.
Okay, I'm Gary Solik, 1098 Tremont Street, Silver Farms. My only question about this is why the approach has been taken to involve agriculture. I believe if this was a more standardized system, not involving agriculture, that this might be easier to pass. I read even this morning, about 60% is what you can expect on your crop. You're not gonna get full production. So I wanna know what farm association is gonna lend money to an ambitious young farmer, because we know Jimmy's not gonna continue farming. He deserves the right to retire. Okay, he deserves that. But what farm association is gonna stand up under this unproven system? Because this is a very new system. It makes a lot of sense, but we don't have the results yet. We don't have a history. This is a trial. This is a test. So who's going to get the money to farm this? When we know there's a lot more vacant land available, who's going to farm it? And if you farm it with produce, do I want to eat what's grown under it? Right, Chris?
I agree.
Okay? I'm not so sure I want to eat it. And I'm not so sure I want to eat imported foods either, for that matter, but I'm not going to be comfortable with kale production, with pepper production, when they're telling us a maximum 60% you can expect out of that crop. It just won't work. The second thing is, I think we have to look at, and I agree with you, Woody, we have to look at the effect of Dayton. What is it that Dayton is going to reflect by having such an obvious system on Tremont Street in North Dayton? It is going to change the character of the town. If you care about the character of the town, there it is. Okay? It will change it. So my own personal opinion is I agree, maybe we don't want to see all homes being built there. I agree with that. We're watching our tax base, we're concerned about our schools, our fire, our police, that even has a brand new station, but we're gonna need more. This is gonna be costly to this town. So perhaps a review of maybe this whole strategy of building agriculture and solar in combination might have a better chance, in my opinion, strictly solar. That's the way I would see it, because I don't see panels more than twice the height of this ceiling behind your ranch house, behind your colonial. I don't see it. You're not going to camouflage it unless you do heavy greens. Deciduous trees, he's right, leaves are off the trees. So if we bring in greenery, full season, as you may have mentioned, sir, bringing in maybe not even native species, but if you do a nice blend of greenery, something that's just comfortable, artistic, you run into the blues, you run into the greens, you run into the chartreuses. You give it some character. I think our town would look at that as, nice job, solar systems down low, closer to the ground, and look what they did with the plantings. Throw a few azaleas here and there. Show that your interest of your product and what you're trying to present to this town is something you can have with pride, because it is going to be highly seen and highly visual to this town. So maybe you can take a benefit of doing something more in that direction. But this one, in my opinion, no. No benefits for agriculture. And it's going to look with an industrial feel on the farm. But I'd be happy to see you come back, my personal opinion, that's all you're asking for, with a traditional solar, I believe you'd have a better chance.
Probably less incentives involved, but
You're welcome.
thank you, Gary.
Welcome.
I have a different perspective, because I don't live on Tremont Street. My
But, I'm
property
sorry, could
abuts-
you-
Oh, sorry, Joanne Racine,
Please, thank you.
624 Middle Street. My property abuts the southern border, and initially I spoke to Drew about the possibility of maybe expanding, and I think that's why you put the transformer closer. But I have not, talked to anybody about it. My concern is now, all the solar panels, there's no buffer between my property, which is, the fields that you see down at the bottom of the page, and the transformer or whatever it is there. I did have trees there before. There were no trees with this new plan. It's definitely closer, and I think there was a 50-foot buffer zone, and I think that is now gone. And maybe it is still there, I don't know. But I do have the possibility of, also, and I don't think I want to expand that, but I also have the potential for lots, house lots there, according to a land, not a developer, but a
Surveyor.
land broker. And so now I'm concerned because it's closer to my property, and that transformer is just about abutting my property, which has the potential, like I said, of house lots there. So that's my concern now, because, it has changed.
Would you like to look at it when you drive by every day?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, well, it doesn't bother me too much, but I also worry about, who's gonna wanna buy a house lot over there, in the future. I'm getting older and, you know, Jimmy farms my land, and how much more is he gonna be farming? So I have the potential, like I said,